trust while public speaking?
Well, I think you earn trust in public speaking by being genuine, by being clear about what you're saying, about showing that you care about the topic, probably being passionate and interested in the topic as well, whatever it is you're speaking about. I think those help build trust in people.
And how do you like to really speak clearly while you're public speaking?
Well, I think when you're public speaking, it's important to plan out. Like if you know what the topic's going to be, I would plan ahead so that I was able to have time to think through the most important points I wanted to make and organize it in a logical fashion so that it would be very clear and concise and make sense.
Alrighty. And what do you think people should observe while they're public speaking?
Well, I think it's really important as you're speaking. I think it's important to make eye contact with the people you're speaking to, like your audience. Some people get very nervous and they don't look at their audience, but I like to make eye contact with the audience, and I think it's important to be paying attention to their body language. If they're interested, then they are watching you. They are not moving around much. They're not talking usually. They're going to be sometimes nodding in agreement, or if you want to add a little humor, they might laugh at what you've said that's funny. You really want to constantly watch your audience so you can gauge, do I need to wrap this up? Do I need to go a different direction? So it's very important as you speak publicly to observe your audience.
Gotcha. And how would you say that you develop meaningful relationships with people?
Well, I think relationship building is the most important thing we can do as humans, truthfully. And I think that you do that by being dependable, by being caring and compassionate with other people, by being interested in other people, you know, by asking questions, asking how people are, by truly caring and following through with what you've said. If you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, then people are not as likely to trust you, and you build relationships with people that you trust, and being enjoyable to be around. You know, if you don't want to be around people that are no fun or always negative or, you know, aren't nice. So I think it's important to just be, you know, honest with people, to be trustworthy, and to be caring.
Yeah, and just on that note, how do you meet the needs of the people?
Well, I think you meet needs of people by asking them, by getting to know them. If you ask questions and you get to know people and you listen, then you get to know what their needs are. You can even be as direct as saying, is there something that you specifically need? Sometimes that's the quickest and best way to really get to it directly, and then to really discuss that with them and try to keep that in mind when you are working with people, you know, trying to meet the needs. I will give you an example, like with the teachers. Teachers are stressed, they're busy, they're working hard, and you know, there are times that I have to listen to them and say, what is it that you need? And sometimes that might be that we cancel a faculty meeting that we were going to have because they're tired, they need that, it's better for them to have a break. Or I found that teachers really like chocolate, so I have a basket of chocolate that every day I refill for teachers, and teachers come by throughout the day. I keep my door open. Like, this is hard to have it closed right now because if a teacher goes by, they don't get their chocolate that they were hoping to get, and sometimes they look forward to it. So I don't know, I think it's asking, it's observing, and it's really caring about them.
Yeah, I think I do need I do know a few teachers who need their chocolate.
Well, you know where they can get it, so do they. You can make a recommendation, maybe you should get some chocolate.
Miss Thomas is pretty good. But how do you know that you're reaching your audience?
Well, when you're speaking or you're working with people, you're constantly observing your audience. And you, if you're really observant, should be able to tell whether you're reaching them or not. If you're reaching them, you're going to be able to tell. If you're not reaching them, you should be able to tell too. They're going to be wiggling around, or they're going to be dissatisfied. Like if it's a public speaking engagement, people will start talking. You can see them disengage from you. If it's just dealing with another person, you know, like if I were talking to just some teachers, it's not like a public speaking, but I'm trying to build relationships with those teachers. I can tell by the eye contact, if they keep eye contact with me. I can tell by their facial expression and their body language. I think it's very important to learn tone of voice, inflection, body language, expressions. I mean, the whole time, so much communication is nonverbal. And I think it really benefits us to be familiar with nonverbal communication so that we're able to read and adjust according to what we're seeing. It's not just words. A lot of times the words are kind of not even the important thing. It's the whole, what they're saying through their body language.
Would you say it's important to speak to the emotions of the audience?
Absolutely, because I think if you think about what builds relationships, it's having a connection emotionally with someone. The people that you really like or that you really admire, there's some sort of connection that you have with them, and they create some sort of positive emotion in you. And I think it's very important that you try to build that, because that's where you get that connection. We're always trying to make connections as humans, and it's all through the emotions. And so I think that is important. That's why some good speakers like to tell stories, because they're trying to get you involved with them, trying to get you to relate to them, trying to understand where they're coming from. And then you make a connection like, oh, I had a situation like that. I understand what he's talking about. So those are techniques that just help.
Alrighty. How do you think that a leader should communicate with others?
I think a leader needs to listen. I think we think of communicating as speaking, but I think it's crucial that a leader do a lot of listening and a lot of observing and a lot of question asking. Because if you're asking people, well, how is this going? How do you feel? Would you do it differently? I think it's really important to include the people you're working with. As a leader, you want to know what are their strengths, what are the areas that they want to grow in, and you want to build on those, and you want to help them. And you want to ask them, how am I doing for you? Like, what can I do better? Then it seems more of a collaborative relationship. And I think it's important to be clear about your vision, about your message. It's important to be consistent. That's really frustrating when leaders are not consistent with what their message is, because then people get confused, and after a while they'll just go, forget it, I don't even know what you want. So being consistent with it. And I also think it's really crucial. I know that there have been leaders in the past that were like dictators, that were not loved or kind or compassionate, but I feel like it's best if we can deal compassionately with others, that's demonstrating compassion and caring that we should show as leaders, because we should care about the people that we lead, in my opinion. Now, I have kind of the servant's leader philosophy, where I feel like it's important that I help and I serve, and if I'm asking you to do it, I'm going to be willing to do it too. If you notice in the cafeteria, I'm always willing to pick up trash. That's because if I'm not willing to model it, how can I expect others to do it? So, I mean, there's those kind of philosophies that run through my mind with this.
Yeah, I think that is leading by example is a pretty strong way to do it.
Well, thank you.
Do you believe that great communicators make great observations?
Yes, I do. I do, simply because to be a great communicator, you have to be observing, as we've talked about, your audience. You have to be observing what's going on around you, so you're picking up on cues and clues. And if you don't do that, you're not going to be a good communicator, because what you may be saying is not necessarily relevant because you don't know what's going on around you. So I think it's crucial.
Alright. Well, that was Ms. Thomas, Principal Cedar Ridge, and that'll be all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I enjoyed talking to you. Great,
too.
thank you.